of these were saved. I still get angry about it. 40 rolls of film, for Christ's sake, and they erased them. Anyhow, next picture, please. This is, no, go back to this there. Yeah, this is important. It's the same photo, Landsberg, but the next negative, 9838, of this object here, flying by. Next picture. Now we're getting into some nitty-gritty. I want to give you just a brief little bit of history here. Back in the early days of NASA and the Apollo program, I got this picture from the Japanese Space Agency, the Japanese NASA. They have a tremendous program going over there in Japan. You know, the Japanese are bright people. So the Japanese Space Agency had signed a contract with NASA years and years ago to buy copies of every picture NASA took during the Apollo program. And I'm sure the Japanese paid a sizable amount of money for this contract. And as the films was developed and the photos were made, and they shipped them off to Japan, and the Japanese have a tremendous reservoir of good original NASA pictures. They bought them, they paid for them. Now this photograph was released by the Japanese Space Agency, and you can see the Japanese writing here. This was taken by Apollo 13. Now you're all familiar, I'm sure, with Apollo 13. That was the aborted mission that was going to the moon to land, and they had an accident on the way. They couldn't land. They damn well barely got back. While they are on the way to the moon, here's the moon, a number of things began happening. Some strange objects were appearing outside the windows of the spacecraft. And guys, they grabbed their Hasselblad camera and started taking pictures. This photograph shows 3 different objects here. This looks like a circular object with an enlarged dome on top. This is a smaller object, a circular kind of disc-shaped craft. But coming in from the right margin of this particular picture is this. Next picture, please. Here we are. This is a blow-up of the positive in the photograph. And here is a blow-up of the negative of the photograph of this object here. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular object is 5 miles long. And I'm tempted to use the term big mother. No pun intended, but it appears to be a mothership. It's gigantic. It's 5 miles long. And here these NASA guys are up there in this little cramped Apollo capsule. And they look out their window and they see something that's 5 miles long. It shakes them up a little bit. When they got back to NASA with these pictures, it shook them up a hell of a lot. Next picture, please. This is the next sequence. Here this large mother has moved into the middle of the frame, and something else has shown up over here, which has been estimated to be 2 miles long. But this really upset the guys. I've never been able to find out which one of the 3 Apollo members of the Apollo 13 crew would admit to ever having taken these pictures. Because as you know, the Apollo astronauts were threatened with their lives. I kid you not, they were threatened seriously. They even threatened their families if they ever divulged any of the information that they knew. Next photo, please. Yeah, here we are. Here's the big mother. Here's the other one, 2 miles long. Here's a picture of the positive. This is the negative. This mother is 5 miles long. Up here you see what appears to be two circular objects either arriving or departing from that particular big ship. I can almost understand why the authorities in NASA, why the authorities in the space program didn't want this information to come out. They were frightened. They were stunned. They couldn't deal with it themselves, and they figured that if they couldn't handle it, you couldn't handle it. There would be social disruption, I believe is one of the terms they used. It would disturb the body politic, I believe the term they used. So they clamped the lid down on this, and it's still down, and it's going to stay down, I'm afraid, for some time yet, until people like yourselves and people like me and the rest of them here on the stage, by pushing and prodding and chipping away at this lie and this secrecy, eventually we will succeed. And don't you doubt that for a minute. Now you're in for another photograph that I think will shock you some. In 1980, NASA, never a straight answer, launched the Voyager program to Saturn. They launched this little mechanical spaceship filled with cameras and film and so on. Wanted to go to Saturn because something had been going on in the rings of Saturn, around the moons of Saturn, that didn't make a lot of sense. Some anomalous events were taking place in Saturn, near Saturn, at Saturn. So they launched the Voyager in 1980. The pictures they got back from Voyager was so stunning and so shocking that they just locked them up in the safe. Fortunately, I met and developed a friendship with a retired NASA scientist by the name of Norman Berggren. Norman Berggren worked for NASA for about 30 years. He was a technician, a scientist on the Voyager program to Saturn in 1980. Norman decided, after waiting a number of years, for NASA and the authorities to be candid and honest and forthright and tell us what they really found up at Saturn. And Norman got so frustrated he wrote a book. Now, he couldn't get it published in the United States. No American publishing house would even touch it. Norman Berggren had to go to Scotland, for God's sake, to Aberdeen to get his book published. And he He did succeed. He got his book. It's a piece of genius. It's a beautiful piece of work. And the things that they photographed near Saturn appeared in print for the first time. Next photo, please. There we are. This is the A-ring of Saturn. You're all familiar with what Saturn looks like. It's a beautiful planet. It's giant. It's a big one. But it's got rings all around it. Well, this is the A-ring, and here is an object that is self-luminous, obviously artificial, larger than our moon. It seems to be moving all around throughout the rings of Saturn among the moons of Saturn. And Saturn's got a couple of dozen moons. This object here, as I said, larger than our moon, moving all around, apparently under intelligent control in the rings of Saturn. Now, try for a moment, if you can, to imagine a kind of a technology that is capable of constructing something larger than our moon, that's artificial, that moves around wherever it wishes to go, that's probably got several thousand guys inside. That is shocking to some people. Next picture, please. Next photograph. This is the piece de resistance, I guess, as the French say. Here you have another self-luminous, artificially constructed object, circular in shape, large